I grew up in silence, quietly like a shadow, passing through my childhood and teenage years without leaving any clear traces on the world. I observed everyone from a distance, like an invisible audience sitting in the back row of a large stage, where everyone had a role except me, without friends, without endless conversations like many other children. I did not know how to start a conversation and could not catch up with the natural flow of communication. The world around me was bustling, and I seemed to be lost outside the glass door. Then at some point, I began to feel a lingering void, a vague desire to connect, to belong to someone, to something. That was when I learned about the concept of social skills, hoping to find the key to open the world. I read famous books such as How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Art of Successful Communication, and then passionately watched hundreds of videos instructing how to talk, how to smile, how to look straight into the eyes of others. All promised that I would become attractive, loved. But strangely, nothing changed. I was still me, lost in the crowd, struggling with shyness and isolation. I asked myself countless times, why did those techniques praised as truths not work? Was I a special case, unable to improve? Or were they all just empty words? Beautiful on the cover, but empty inside. The answer only appeared when I started studying psychology, especially human behavior. And it was from there that I realized something that completely changed the way I saw the world. Most of what we are taught about communication, from maintaining eye contact, repeating the other person's name, smiling at the right time, is just superficial. It's not wrong, but it's not enough either. It can make you pretend well for a few minutes, but it can't help you truly connect. It was then that I understood the problem wasn't the technique, but the person inside me, the way I felt, thought, and perceived myself and others. And it was only when I started to change from that root that things really started to change. I also discovered something else. Equally important charm, what people call charisma, is not the privilege of a few. On the contrary, it is something that anyone can develop, as long as we understand its true nature. So, in this series, especially the second part, I want to share the inner journey I've been through, not just from books, but also from observation, impact, and constant re-examination of myself. And I believe that, if you read to the end and sincerely apply what I share, you will feel a quiet but profound change. Others begin to be attracted to you, not because you try, but because you are present. Charisma is not a miracle. It is the sum of three elements that can be trained: presence, warmth, and stability. Each element is important, but only when all three exist together can true charisma be formed. If one of the three is missing, you may come across as fake, cold, or insecure. We will start with the first and perhaps the rarest in this age: presence. Presence is not an action, but a state. People who are truly present do not need to nod, do not need to smile at the right time, do not need to say clever words. They make the other person feel seen, heard, present. In a world where everyone is busy looking at the screen, a person who quietly looks into your eyes and really listens is something very special. I once met someone like that. She did not talk much, did not have any outstanding gestures, but every time I spoke, her eyes paused for a long time, not looking through, but looking inside. At first I was confused because I was not used to such attention. But after a few minutes, I began to open up. It was the first time I saw clearly presence does not need words, but the feeling of being accepted in silence. However, in real life, presence is often stolen. Stolen by anxiety. Am I making an impression? Am I sounding smart? When you start calculating what to say next, you've left the present moment. Even though your body is still there, your mind is absent, and the other person will sense it. Not intellectually, but intuitively. Being present requires taking risks. The risk of imperfection. It is daring to be silent for a few seconds to truly listen, to admit that you don't know what to say. It is those uncontrolled pauses that open up the most authentic space of a person, like a simple but well-lit room, making anyone who enters feel at ease. And the deepest presence is when you forgive yourself. Once, in a conversation, I found myself starting to tense up because I was afraid of being judged. I stopped, took a deep breath, and returned to the feeling of my feet on the ground. When I looked up, I looked at the person no longer with the desire to score points, but simply to see them. The conversation immediately changed, not because I said something better, but because I was truly present. But being present is not enough, because there are people who are very present, but we still don't feel comfortable. They listen, they look, they respond, but they make us feel observed, judged. That's because their presence lacks warmth. Warmth is what makes the other person feel like they don't need to be on guard. They don't need to try to be strong, smart, or likable. You don't try to be right. You don't try to be good. You are simply human, with all the vulnerability and tolerance. Because you don't try to be good, you become approachable. I used to think that to help someone better, I needed to advise, support, inspire. But then I realized what people need most when they are in pain is not advice, but someone who won't leave. No one needs to be fixed. They just need to stay intact, even if that means they are confused, weak, or unlovable. Warmth is not cute actions like hugs or comforting words, but a state of not making others feel small. You're not standing higher to help, but standing on the same level where everyone has the right to be vulnerable and to be respected for that. If you are fully present but still not truly loved, it may be because you have not let people see you. Because deep connection does not come from the eyes or the words, it comes from the feeling I am safe with this person. But there is one last element, the one that can make or break any connection stability. Because while the other person is falling apart, a gentle but not strong enough presence will not hold them back. Stability is not about being tough or hiding emotions. A stable person is someone who can feel the pain, but not be swept away by it. They can sit with someone in turmoil without panicking, without immediately offering solutions. They are peaceful enough not to judge and patient enough not to withdraw. I was there for a friend when they were about to break down. I didn't say anything. I didn't advise. I just stayed. And something strange happened. They started to soften. Not because of what I did, but because I didn't leave. Stability doesn't come from trying to act okay. It comes from accepting who you are, including your vulnerability. And when you can be there for someone without being shaken by their emotions, you become a place they can lean on, even if only for a moment. Sometimes, even when you're there, warm and solid, the other person still can't say a word, because there are nameless sorrows and there are feelings that can't be put into words. And then the most precious thing left is silence. Not all silences are scary, Asmod. There are silences that are more fulfilling than any words. When two people sit together, saying nothing, trying to do nothing, just being. I once sat with a friend like that after a great loss. The wind was blowing, the sky was clear. We said nothing, but I had never felt less alone. Silence is not a lack of action. It is an act of letting go of the desire to control, of the role of healer. It is when you trust enough that your presence, even if you do nothing, is enough. And in that unconditional presence, warm without pressure, steady without show, silent without pressure, gradually, trust develops. Not the kind of trust that comes from promises, but the trust that is built through every moment of being truly present. So perhaps the most beautiful and profound thing we can do for each other is to stay. Not just when the other person is strong, or nice, or happy, but even when they are withdrawn, not talking, not okay, and not sure who loves them anymore. Because sometimes just one person choosing not to leave is already healing.